Hello and welcome back to Israel with Aline. We continue in our mini-series of the last steps of Jesus in Jerusalem. Today we will visit the site of the Last Supper and the Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus will weep. And then also the prison and the solitary, where Jesus will spend the night and where Peter will deny him 3 times until the rooster crows. But was it really a rooster? New archaeological findings show a perhaps slightly different story, that the rooster was not really an animal. Today we are going to talk about all this and much more. So, if you are ready, let's get started. Here on the channel we started a special mini-series of the last steps of Jesus to celebrate Easter here in Jerusalem. Today is our second episode. I will link all the episodes here for you, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming episodes. We are now on Mount Zion, a very important place biblically speaking, and many biblical passages happened here. But we came for a special passage, the place of the Last Supper, also known as the cenacle. We are now going to go up and see if this is really where the Last Supper took place, and also why we are going up to the 2nd floor. Let's go! We are going up to the 2nd floor because it is written in the Bible that the Last Supper took place in the upper room. In the original Greek text it is written anagion, which is the upper room, that is the 2nd floor of a house. In a minute we will enter the possible location of the Last Supper. But before that, I want to say that the Last Supper took place almost 2,000 years ago, here in the Middle East, in Judea. It has nothing to do with that image we have in mind from Leonardo da Vinci's painting. This is an image that was made centuries later with European thought in mind. Today we are going to talk about the real Last Supper, about how it happened in its original languages, Hebrew and Aramaic. So let's go in and learn a little more about the real Last Supper. Why does Jesus meet with his disciples? They come here to eat and celebrate the Jewish Passover, a tradition that exists to this day, where families and closest friends gather for a large supper, where the departure of the Jews from Egypt is remembered. 4 cups of wine or grape juice are taken, and unleavened bread is eaten, which is a bread without yeast. But Jesus knew that this was not just another Passover supper, but that it was the Last Supper. And it is written in Luke 22. And with him the 12 apostles. I have eagerly desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. For I tell you, I will not eat it again until it finds fulfillment in the kingdom of God. And he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he said, "Take this and divide it among you. For I tell you, I will not drink again from the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of God comes." And he took bread, gave thanks and broke it, and gave it to them, saying, "This is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." He knew of Judas's betrayal and therefore began to prepare his disciples for his departure. And he teaches them the supper. Every time you have supper at your church, you are directly connected to the teachings that Jesus made in this place. And Jesus reveals to them the terrible events that will come during the night. And Peter said to him, "Lord, I am ready to go with you to prison and to death." But he said, "I tell you, Peter, the rooster will not crow today before you deny 3 times that you know me." But now an archaeological question: was it really here that the Last Supper and the conversation between Peter and Jesus took place? There are oral traditions that speak of this place as the location of the Last Supper for a long time. In the year 382, the Church of the Apostles was built here, and before that, the place already functioned as a synagogue that was frequented by Jews and Christian Jews. That means that already in the first centuries, this was a place where the followers of Jesus came to pray. But unfortunately, the building was destroyed and rebuilt several times. That's why what we see here mostly is from the Crusader period. But some parts that are located on the lower floor are still original from the Roman period. After Jesus finishes the Last Supper, he takes 3 of his apostles and descends to the Kidron Valley, to a place called the Garden of Gethsemane. Among the trees of the Garden of Gethsemane is where Jesus came to pray, to pass his agony, and also to sweat blood. See how special this place is to be chosen by Jesus. Of all the places in Jerusalem, he chose to come here. And we have here olive trees that are over 2,000 years old, which are living witnesses of what happened in this place. And while Jesus was praying, Judas Iscariot arrives here and gives the kiss of betrayal. Then Jesus is arrested and taken to the house of Caiaphas, which is on Mount Zion. And where are we going now? Look how amazing the door of this church is. I'm going to close it so you can see better. Here we can see the representation of the passage that happened not here, but at the Last Supper that we just read. They are here dining, while Jesus predicts Peter's 3 denials, which will really be fulfilled in this place. This will be one of the most difficult moments of Jesus' life, his arrest, and also the denial by his closest companion, Peter. Let's go in and learn more about this very, very difficult story. We are entering a very different place, as you can see. This was a prison in the times of Jesus. We can even see some of the cells here. And above, the holes where ropes were tied to hold people. There's something that doesn't make much sense. Why does the high priest, who is a religious leader, have a prison next to his house? Why does he have soldiers at his disposal? It's a bit strange, but we have to remember that at this time, in the days of Jesus, the temple had been corrupted. By whom? By the Romans themselves. The Romans knew that to control Israel, they needed to control what was most important to the people of Israel, which is their temple. So the Romans kill the high priest of Israel and start replacing the high priest with priests who are friends of the Roman cause, so to speak. They put in priests who are more concerned with the Romans and their money than with what is right in the eyes of the people of Israel and in the eyes of God. And Caiaphas was precisely a high priest who had been chosen by the Romans. And that's why he has a prison here in his house. But he doesn't put Jesus in a cell like the ones we just saw. No, Jesus needed a separate prison from the others. He puts Jesus in a kind of solitary confinement that we can see down here. And now together we are going to descend to the prison where Jesus was placed. Guys, this place has such a really dark, so strange feeling. I want to explain to you that this staircase that I am going down, it did not exist in Jesus' time. This was really a hole that had no escape. There was no way out unless someone threw a horn or descended a ladder to this place. And can you understand a bit of Jesus' suffering in this place? First, he was betrayed by Judas, one of the 12 apostles. That person who was so close to him, who accompanied him for almost 3 years, he goes and betrays him for 30 pieces of silver. And Peter, who was really his closest friend, is not going to betray him, but will deny him. And Jesus, being here inside, he knew what was happening outside. Remember that he had already predicted the denial and betrayal at the Last Supper. So, while he was in this place, within these cold walls, in such an isolated place, he knew that outside, Peter was denying him 3 times. But how can I affirm that this prison was precisely the prison where Jesus was placed? How do I know that this was the prison? Because of these archaeological remains, the archaeological remains of Caiaphas' house. Let's take a closer look at them. First, this house is not of a normal size. It is huge, and therefore shows that the person who lived here was rich and important. It is dated from the end of the Second Temple period, meaning the time of Jesus, but the most important thing is what was found inside the house. For example, these utensils that we are seeing now. Think about it, folks. A stone cup like this is not at all practical to use. There were much better things 2,000 years ago. Whoever lived in this house used stone dishes, not for practicality but for a religious reason. According to Judaism, stone is always pure, and those who are very concerned about being pure use stone utensils. In this case, the priests of the Temple of Jerusalem, they had to be pure, especially the high priest, because otherwise he could not go do the temple work. And also found inside the house was a mikveh, a ritual bath. The Jews would also go to the mikveh before going up to the Temple of Jerusalem, and there are many public mikvehs here in Jerusalem that anyone could go there and use. But the person of this house made a point of having a mikveh inside his house because he probably purified himself very frequently, like a priest who needed to purify himself every day before going to the temple. So probably this is really the house of Caiaphas because of the purification utensils and also because of the wealth. And even more than that, a Byzantine church was built over the house. The Byzantine period is the first Christian period in Israel, indicating that this was already a place of Christian worship here. since the 4th century. And look where we are. We are very close to the Temple of Jerusalem, which makes a lot of sense considering that Caiaphas would probably like to live near his work. Guys, I just heard a rooster crowing here, and I'm going to take this moment to talk to you about the rooster issue. There are two theories about the rooster. The first one, I imagine you all have heard, that the rooster was really an animal and that it crows 3 times. But we know that there were no roosters in Jerusalem at the time of the temple. Why? Because animals are a dirty and impure thing. We don't want animal feces here in the place of sanctity where people were pure going up to the Temple of Jerusalem. We are very close to it. Can you see where the Golden Dome is? It's the place where the Temple of Jerusalem used to be. So within the walls it was forbidden to raise animals. Since we're not too far from where the walls were, it's possible that Peter really heard a rooster crowing outside the walls, just like I heard a little while ago. The second theory says that the rooster was not an animal, but was a man, a person. And we're going to learn a little bit about this theory now. 2,000 years ago in the Temple of Jerusalem, there was a Levite who was in charge of waking up the priests and notifying the start of the services in the temple. How did he do that? He did that by blowing a trumpet, and he was nicknamed Rooster. We know this also from the Jewish oral tradition called the Mishnah. In archaeological excavations next to the Jerusalem temple, it was found this stone, which was the top of the temple, which over time it fell, and on it is written in Hebrew, Lebeit Tatkiah, the place of the trumpet touch, meaning exactly here is where this Levite played the trumpet. And now let's read again the verse from Luke 22. But he said, I tell you, Peter, the rooster will not crow today before you deny 3 times that you know me. See that Jesus does not say when a rooster will crow, but he speaks of the crowing of the rooster. That is, he probably refers to a specific rooster. But now I ask you, do you think the rooster that crowed was really an animal? Or is this passage talking about the Levite who played the trumpet and who was nicknamed Rooster? Everything that happens with Jesus here is really powerful. These are very hard moments, and after spending all night in this prison, Jesus, in the morning, will be tied up and taken by the soldiers down the street to the central part of the old city of Jerusalem, where he will later be judged by Pontius Pilate. But that is already part of our next chapter here in our mini-series following the steps of Jesus. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow the steps of Jesus. I wish everyone a happy and blessed Easter, and see you here next time.